October 15th, 2024. The time is 10 a.m. In attendance are Commissioners Matari and Duncan. Commissioner Brooks is excused. Are there changes to the agenda?
Yes, we're going to remove item number 3.
Okay, and that'll be handled next week. And then public comment. Okay, hearing none. Our first item, Justice Center update, and Mr. Mendez is not here today, so we'll rely on Mr. Staub and Mr. Voller.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. So we have John Staub with us from Boughton today, and he can give us a little bit of update and answer some questions. I know there's been some conversation about some of the fire proofing details that we need to do, and I'll get into that here in just a minute. But let's talk about items A and B as you have listed here on the agenda. First are the Avista contracts. Those will be on your business meeting this afternoon. Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend that business meeting, so I'll just kind of prep that for you ahead of time right now. Those are the standard contracts to set up the service agreements with Avista to service that building for both gas and electric. They're very just kind of the general contracts that Avista has. Legal has reviewed those, and so those will be up for your consideration this afternoon on the business meeting. So if you have any specific questions about those, I can try to address those right now. And so maybe I'll just see if you have any questions about that aspect of it right now.
Any questions?
No.
Okay, and then the second thing you have here are building lettering. There's been some conversation about the color of the letters that are to go on the building where it says Justice Center. And initially it was spec'd out to be anodized, but it's on a concrete wall that is silver, and anodized is kind of a silver grayish lettering. We're suggesting maybe we go with black, and just wanted to see if there was any dissension towards that. We're also going to move the lettering of the address that is on the existing building. If you look at that closely, it's made out of plywood, and it just looks really, really bad when you look at it up close. And so while we're doing it, we're just going to add the lettering. It should be really minimal cost to add that additional lettering, put it under Justice Center on the concrete wall. So it'll basically say Kootenai County Justice Center, or actually Justice Building, I think is what it says there. Sorry, Justice Building, and we did clarify it should say building. And then probably we would recommend in black rather than going with the anodized for that.
Okay, so are you okay with black and Justice Building?
Hey, I trust the experts.
Okay. I'm not sure we're the experts in colors. We've had that conversation, but I think black on a gray wall looks as pretty benign to make that decision.
And the architects have concurred with that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, okay. I'm going to have John just go ahead and maybe give an overall progress update, and then we'll talk about fire stopping after he's done with just a real basic, general update on the project since he's here.
Yeah, John Staub with Boughton Construction for the record. Project is going great. We're on the outside. I think everybody's been excited to see as we're pulling down the scaffolding, revealing kind of the exterior finishes, really starting to see what this building is going to look like. We're working our way clockwise from the north elevation around, so that'll continue to progress. It's on schedule, on the latest schedule that's been issued. We're tracking to that very closely, so we're excited to see that continue. And on the inside of the building, everything is really starting to take shape. We're starting on the top floor, so the prosecutor's level is starting to receive drywall already. Really starting to see all the rooms come and take their shape. Everything is tracking on or ahead of schedule inside. And the courtrooms down on the lower levels all the walls are framed now, so you can see the size and scale of them, which is just exciting to visualize that. So we are working right now on developing a mock-up for the judges to come in and review the layout and just the configuration of their benches and things like that. So in the coming weeks, we'll be coordinating a visit for them to visualize that and make sure that everything is good according to plan and no changes are needed. Otherwise, out in the main entryway at the north end, the exterior plaza up there, we've had that shut down and kind of reconfigured a little bit for about a month now, and we have another month or so to go to get that all done, but everything is progressing really well over there. There's a really large retaining wall that we're going to be pouring the concrete for this Friday, and that's where that signage that Jeff just mentioned will be going. So that's exciting to see that all come together, and just at a really good spot in the project overall. Our main concerns are around the fire stopping, and as Jeff alluded to, we've been making some really good headway on that. There's just some very finite project-specific details that we've had to work through with the local building inspector, the architects, and then receive engineering judgments from the fire stopping manufacturers for very specific conditions. So we are making really good headway on that. We had a productive meeting on Monday morning with the building inspector to run through a plan. We've categorized things into 9 total issues. We resolved 8 of those on Monday morning, and in a very favorable manner, I would say. And the last one is related to the elevator shaft for the staff that's in the southeast corner of the building. And that's just down to some coordination with our elevator manufacturer to confirm the approach that's on the table is going to be acceptable for them as well. And that's trending in a favorable direction as well. So we're meeting today with our framing trade partner, Modern Drywall, to go through and price as much as we can and try to get all that accounted for. There will be some adds and deducts, so we're making sure that we're capturing all the credits associated with changing one wall type to another and making sure that that's all equitably priced out and laid out for everybody. So we're working with Jeff and David on that, and over the coming weeks we hope to bring all that cost forward. And I think David had shared with you an estimated range of $50,000 to $150,000. We think that's holding based on Monday's meeting. We'll be somewhere in that range, and so as we price all this up, we'll continue to update the team if we expect that to change in one direction or the other.
Any questions on that?
Yeah, I'm just curious. This seems like it's kind of late in the game to be dealing with fireproofing. So did the fire code change between the time the design was put together and today?
I think that's a fair question. No, the code has not changed. The fireproofing that we're talking about is very finite details on exactly how one assembly meets another. And sometimes those exact conditions are difficult to anticipate. I would say this is very common to deal with this type of coordination at this stage of the project. We anticipate as much as we can, and the architects detail as much as they can, but there's just some really, the joist system was separately designed by a third party, and that's playing into some of this, exactly where some of those joists laid out in relation to the architectural assemblies couldn't have been anticipated earlier. So all that to say, I don't think this is particularly unusual. The extent of it and the detail to which we're going with this particular building inspector, he's very, very diligent. And I'd say it's above and beyond industry standard, but nothing that we can't work through.
So this is something that you encounter on every project?
Yes, to some extent, not quite to this full degree. I wouldn't have thought quite this extent, but I think with the solutions that are on the table, we're taking the most economical approach to solve these across the board.
I think part of it comes from the fact that we have multiple types of wall structures in there because of the nature of what this facility is, because we have CMU block wall that is coming up to the studs and joists. That's different because we have the holding cells in there. Mm-hmm. We have the large courtrooms. Those require different kind of fire ratings that you might not have in a certain type of building. And so as those assemblies come off paper and into real life, as we get up kind of towards those top where some of those things meet, there's some things that aren't lining up, quite right or weren't foreseen, and that's where some of these things are, these issues are coming up where we have to look at a new assembly. And you can look at what you call UL assemblies. That's basically like a detail that is in a big book, and it says, oh, that assembly would work right here. But there's some cost involved with, and to what John said, some of it's going to be cost credit, and some of it will be cost that we'll have to incur for that as we work through this.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the different wall types. It's pretty uncommon to have this extent of CMU, the concrete block, in an upper level of a steel frame building. So that is a contributing factor for sure.
Yeah, I don't have any doubt that there's not complexity to it. The issue really is that when you start explaining this stuff to me, I mean, look, I've never done this before. I rely on the people who this is their job. So when we get these unexpected events occurring, I have to ask myself, how did this happen? And by virtue of knowing that you're having these different manufacturers, these different styles of architecture or design, as you say, coming together, that in and of itself should be saying there's going to be some slop here, some things we can't account for. So, you would think that this would be kind of built into, the process.
Yeah, very much so. I think our approach, knowing that and anticipating that, was to carry the contingencies at the level that we did.
Yeah.
I think if we hadn't carried those contingencies, we would have recommended earmarking money to deal with this in a different way. So that is the strategy I think the team is taking. I think that we have really good contingency balances to address these at this stage.
Fair enough. Thank you.
All right, item 2, facilities update.
Okay, thanks, John. Okay, several different items on the facility update. Let's start with Kootenai North. Currently the roofers are wrapping up right now. They are substantially complete. There's a little bit of cleanup and touch-up to do, but for all practical purposes, they are relatively complete with the roofing job up there. Move-in patrol is starting their move today. The parking lot is being striped, and that is something that was not part of the scope of the budget, but that's something that they are covering out of their FY25 operating budget. They're still waiting on the ballistic glass in that reception area. There's a long lead time on that. We're still waiting on an exact date of delivery. We have phone calls in to figure out when that's going to be there. The maintenance team is finishing up their portion to receive that glass, and then they will be moving into the evidence area because there's some framing and things that our team needs to do in that evidence area so we can begin to move evidence over into that area. So that's kind of where we're at with Kootenai North as of today. Okay. With the HVAC RFQ that is currently out, that is for the Public Safety Building, the Justice Center, and the Juvenile Detention Center. Just a reminder that that is due next week. So next Tuesday at the business meeting, we will receive those RFQs. I know of at least 5 companies that have been interested in looking at that. They attended the pre-bid walkthrough. They've asked some questions. We responded to their questions in writing as an amendment or an addendum to that RFQ. So that is all in process, and we are just awaiting the bids on that. One thing I would mention as we kind of look at this strategizing moving forward, I think the budgets that have been allocated for those projects did not include engineering and design. And so as we look at that, because we know there's going to be costs to do engineering and design, I think it was kind of some rough estimates from some contractors to say, hey, here's what I think it will cost to install these HVAC systems. And there's a variety of them as we look through the scopes of those different projects. So I think what I would recommend doing as we make a recommendation to go with an engineering firm is, figure out once we negotiate the costs, what those are going to be. We would back those out of the initial budget that we've allocated for that. I've designed this in a way that the RFQ is written that we will phase the project. And so as we go through the engineering design, we can get the engineering recommendation on pricing and options and, best cost. And we would bring all those forward to you as we move forward. And, with the phasing options, we may not be able to do as much, or just depending on where the pricing comes in, or then we look at additional funding that would come out of 5-year plan once we have kind of a full strategy put together for those different facilities. So, and there's still conversation about what should be the priority, whether it should be the Juvenile Detention Center or the Justice Center. And I would still strongly advocate that the Justice Center should be a priority, even though no funding has been allocated for that, because the JDC is still functioning as it is right now, and that would probably be a lower priority as we rank those.
So I think we have a whole bunch of words and initials going on. So
Okay.
JJC, so not JDC.
Sorry, yes, JJC. Sorry,
right.
yes,
And so I
yes.
think we probably need to get back to calling the Justice Building instead of the Justice Center, because now even I'm getting
Right.
confused. So Yeah, so
Yep.
just the old part of the Justice
Old part.
Building is the one that may take priority over Juvenile Justice Center.
Yes.
But we'll have those conversations as things are brought forward.
Yeah, I'm just kind of prepping you for some of those conversations that I think need to come ahead. So you are thinking about that, and that we're all kind of strategizing that as we bring forward the RFQ for the sort of the engineering design, and then
Okay.
next steps as we move forward from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Questions?
None, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
On the admin HVAC project, that is still moving along. Kaufman continues with their design on that. Greg and I had a meeting last week with Kaufman, to review their plans as to where they're at as of today, and it was pretty much as I expected the plans would look like, based on the preliminary designs that they presented. They had a few specific questions on where we could put electrical panels and those types of very specific questions that Greg and I are working through to respond to them. But it's all moving forward, and we'll probably have complete plans around December for that. So
Okay.
that's what the timeframe of that looks like.
Great.
Okay. And then on the jail pod project, we had the presentation from Sletton last week with the guaranteed maximum price. That will be on your business meeting this afternoon for approval on that. Legal has basically put signature lines on that, but it really is the GMP that they presented that will be for your approval. And so I wanted to see if you had any questions now and follow up, since you've heard that presentation from Sletton, and since I won't be at the business meeting, thought we could maybe handle a couple of those questions now as we move forward, if there are any.
Do you have any questions?
No, I don't, thank you.
I have one.
Yeah.
Item 5 says this project will not be LEED certified or LEED equivalent, LEED.
Yeah. LEED is an energy standard that is kind of like a real high rating. So sometimes you may be seeking a LEED project where it's certified as like a certain really, really high energy standard. And I think they're just noting that it's not a LEED project.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then, for future conversation too, I know we've talked about the hot water heaters that we need to replace on that. I would still recommend we do those. I think we could bring those in, get full pricing on that, and do that as a change order, and then discuss whether we want to do that or not. That funding would come out of the 5-year plan as well for that. We estimate it to be about $200,000, but similar to what we did with like the roof at Kootenai North, we can bring you an exact price and discuss that at that point, would be my recommendation for the consideration of the water heaters.
Okay. Anything?
No, I just remember them talking about that last week.
Yep.
So I can't imagine us having a jail that is focused on that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right. If that is all, we have an executive session on here, but I will call for public comment so the public doesn't have to wait around if they don't want to. Okay. No comment. So I would take a motion.
I move that we enter into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061F.
Second.
Commissioner Matari?
Aye.
Chair Duncan?
Aye. It's 10:45. Is there a motion?
I move that we exit executive session 1F with staff to proceed as discussed.
Second.
Commissioner Matari?
Aye.
Chair Duncan?
Aye. And 10:45, meeting adjourned. Thank you.